half got me thinking about that god-awful musical version with Daniel Day-Lewis that came out several years ago. Do you remember that?
What? That was a thing?
Do you not know about this? Oh my goodness me! I'm so glad I brought it up. Um,
To the internet I go.
yeah, well,
What was this?
they made a musical version of Eight and a Half called Nine, which was on Broadway in I think the 90s. And then in 2009 they made it into a movie, and Daniel Day-Lewis played the Marcello Mastroianni part. And I think it's probably the only movie that will ever happen where Daniel Day-Lewis was in the same movie as Fergie.
This holiday season, be
Italian.
What the fuck is this?
Oh, you're gonna have to look up the trailer later. Well, because I remembered, I never saw the movie, but I watched the trailer, and watching Eight and a Half, I was like, oh, I remember this scene from the trailer for Nine, and then I got very depressed. John is staring at his computer screen in complete and utter disbelief, jaw gaping wide open.
Guido song! Be Italian! I can't make this movie!
Starring
Wow.
Daniel Day-Lewis, Nicole Kidman, Marion Cotillard, and Fergie.
Wow. I don't know if my life is better or worse for not seeing that, but it was less interesting.
I'm glad I never saw the movie. Pretty sure I will not see the movie, but
No.
that trailer looms large in my memory. Okay, let's go.
If like Matthew, Alex, and I need a bad movie to hate watch, I think I have the answer.
Oh, God in heaven. Okay. Welcome back to the Hack Fraud Show. This is a very roundabout and American way of saying we're doing Fellini this week.
Sorry, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, God. Listen, you know I got nothing but love for Daniel Day-Lewis.
So do I, but I'm not too sure I want him playing in Italian.
I assume his rationale for starring in that movie was like, oh, I want to be in a remake of Eight and a Half. I can play Guido. I could play this legendary role of historical foreign cinema. Oh boy. And then, it was a musical.
Then it happened.
I'm not sure that's actually what happened, but that's what I like to think happened.
Well, even the best of us make terrible fucking decisions.
Well, we can't say it's a terrible fucking decision. We haven't seen the movie. I like to reserve judgment. Anyway, so this week we're looking at two acclaimed classics by the Italian director Federico Fellini, including what many consider to be his masterpiece, Eight and a Half, and along with another kind of beloved classic from him, which is 1954's La Strada, which I enjoyed quite a bit, actually.
I did too. This was a trip this week.
This was quite a trip this week. But before we take that trip, or recount it for our loyal listeners, let's ask the age-old question here. What have we been watching?
Well, I watched two movies. One was against my will. The other was by choice. I'll start with the one I chose to watch, which was Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Because, it was just high time I actually just saw the full thing instead of, like, dancing around it like I'd done for years.
Sure.
And,
It's great. That's what I do.
Okay. Kind of going off what we said last week, opening absolutely fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Yep.
Animation of the movie is some of the most ambitious Disney's ever done. It's also some of their best.
Yep.
Hellfire is absolute goddamn genius.
Yes. Crazy. But genius.
This movie has a scene where Judge Throlo is looking for the gypsy Esmeralda, and as a part of like his big gypsy purge.
Yeah.
And he burns down Paris looking for gypsies in a scene right out of Kristallnacht.
Yeah.
And like we get this like big panoramic of Paris as smoke is rising, and
Yes.
like you just see Quasimodo looking from Notre Dame, just going, "Holy fuck!"
Yep.
And then what happens right after that is the comic relief gargoyle song. And at that point, I had to pause it and just say to myself, "What the fuck am I watching?"
Can I just say that song is terrible?
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Like, there are some incredible songs and incredible music in this movie. That song is an abomination.
Oh, it's an abomination. Yeah. Oh, I can't believe. Yeah, I think this movie, like, all the good things about it are the least Disney-ish things about it.
Mm-hmm.
All like when it's just a fucking movie about medieval Paris, and it's kind of a loose roundabout adaptation of the Victor Hugo book. It's some of the best Disney's ever done.
Yeah.
When the Disney stuff comes up, like the comic relief and the love triangles, and like there's a point where we see like the gypsy hangout where they stole all their shit, which is some like wild like musical number. I go, hang on a minute, you keep telling me that the gypsies aren't stealing shit. Why are you showing me their hideout where they stole all the shit?
Shrug.
Well, I know this is backing up a little bit, but like, if you want to, like, burning Paris to get rid of gypsies, this is the worst way to get rid. It is the worst way to find gypsies because they flee Paris.
But
They're in caravans.
I guess, and like the climax of this movie yo-yos between just grandiose, wondrous animation, like the big cum shot of him throwing up Esmeralda and saying "Sanctuary, Sanctuary."
It's a great shot.
Wonderful. But then there are things like the gargoyles fighting back against the guards, and at one point, like, they have the Goofy sound attack.
Three Parisian army guards like fall hundreds of feet to their deaths, and the Goofy laugh comes is the audio we hear at that moment.
Like all of like the action in this movie are like these like weird just tonal yo-yos where like some of the goofiest shit ever will happen, and then we cut to like what they actually cared about running away. It is. I do not know what to make of this movie, other than some of it is genius.
Well, I never claimed that this was a tonally consistent movie.
No. I guess I was just surprised by. Well, sometimes I was going like, wow, like I think I was like halfway through, and I'm like, wow, this is actually a lot better than I was expecting. It's a lot smoother than I expected. It's got a lot more of like Frollo than I anticipated. And I must say, like, Frollo as an abusive father is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
There's some fascinating stuff. There's also something about, like, Esmeralda, like, sings a song that is pretty much about faith in God and whether she has faith at all, which in a Disney movie I just did not expect.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, yeah, there are absolute fucking gems in this movie. Like, if you can get past the gargoyles and the Goofy laugh.
Oh, man. I mean, the Goofy laugh, like, whatever. But, like, man, those gargoyles.
Yeah. I'm sure, like, somewhere there's, like, an 85-minute cut of this movie where they just cut out the gargoyles.
I just think...
And that movie's a masterpiece.
How could they possibly take Jason Alexander, one of the all-time great, sitcom actors, George Costanza himself, and make him, like, not funny at all.
That was my favorite part of the Doug Walker review. He said, first of all, how dare you make Jason Alexander not funny?
It's appalling. It's appalling.
I don't get it. I just don't know. I don't know whose idea those were. I think it's just that, like, and I think this is just my big issue with big tentpole Disney pictures, is that because Disney is a brand as well as a movie company, sometimes they just get it into their systems and they just will fuck up their own movies as a result of what they've built themselves to be. They are their own. There are their own greatest enemies sometimes. Sometimes they have the ability to make great art, and other times they throw in gargoyles because you have to have comic relief, and sometimes I'm really frustrated with Disney, to say the least, after this week.
We all are, collectively and eternally. We are frustrated with Disney.
Yeah, so Hunchback and Notre. I do think I agree with you. It's worth watching. Like, this is a fascinating movie with fascinating elements, and there are parts of it that are masterpieces.
One of the few Disney movies that, if they remade it in live action, I might actually see it. And one of,
they're not going to remake.
And I was going to say, one of the only ones that they're definitely not going to do.
Speaking of that.
Oh no.
One of the things I was held hostage to.
Oh no.
I think you know where this is going.
Oh no.
Bill Condon, The Beauty and the Beast.
Well, now you both of you have been now forced to sit through this movie.
Yes.
I am the sole remaining holdout, and I hope to keep it that way.
I mean, the experience of it is like seeing a really shitty high school performance of something like Hamlet. Not Romeo and Juliet, like Hamlet, one of like the huge Shakespeare epics.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's pretty much just like they copied and pasted some of the 91 movie verbatim. Like, there are just some shots in it that are just recreated verbatim in live action, and I'm shocked by that. There are just some that you just see, like, classic songs bastardized with less charismatic actors and with less. I mean, you remember you were saying, like, it doesn't have any energy. You're right. Like, all of, like, the staging is dull. The camera is in, like, this weird voyeuristic angle all the time. Nobody knows how to fucking edit in the movie.
Thank you. Thank you.
God damn it, modern movies don't know how to fucking edit. They just cut everywhere at once. They'll cut the angles where people are blocking the action. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, Gaston's death is the worst thing I've ever seen in a mainstream movie.
Good lord.
I'm baffled by it. I am utterly baffled by it. I mean, everything you've heard is pretty much true. No one can sing. The CGI on the Beast is awful. Like, it just kind of looks like they just took like a person and just like CGI painted like some things onto him. They like there's barely any transformation there. It feels like they're trying to make the Beast hot, which is
oh no, they didn't use CGI. They used MS Paint.
There's a point where like the Beast gets wet and it looks like a PS2 video game. It is.
Oh no.
And it is something to see about. Like I've just never seen something. Well, I've seen the Emoji Movie, so I've seen something more cynical. But just to see it like it is like play acting to see them just like so half-heartedly recreate things that are classic and like just bland sort of. I will give it this, like, the production design's all right. When they actually build shit, it's okay. Though granted, like, all of, like, the charming little servants turned into household objects are horrifying monsters that all look like they want to eat you.
Yeah. That was definitely one of the...
Yeah.
It looked terrible. So what did you think of certain characters, John?
What did I think of certain characters? Well, there wasn't any characters because it's just all people bland. It's like people blandly reciting Romeo and Juliet. Like you get like there was a source material that makes it that says like this is why you're doing this, but none of the actors believe in it. Like, man. God damn it, Emily. God damn Watson. She looks so bored. She looks so fucking bored. And the auto-tune is some of the worst I've heard. It makes The Rock look like a trained fucking singer. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I don't know why they made any of the decisions they made for this thing. I don't know why it exists other than, hey, people know about it, and it'll put asses in seats.
Look,
it doesn't have any passion put into it. It doesn't have any effort put into it, other than, hey, we got some cool, like, come see this at Disneyland, like, plastic sets.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I hate it.
I have no reason ever to see this movie. I love the original so much, and
it makes me want to see the original.
And
That's
everyone,
the one thing it does.
Everyone I trust has told me that this movie is like a pointless, not good retread, and like I have no desire to see this at all. I will say, The Rock proved that you could sell a song with like gumption and a little bit of auto-tune. So
well, it seemed like just everyone looks so bored. Like everyone, like everything is just haphazard and lazy.
Yeah.
And I just don't like. It is like seeing, and all through it, like there's just a bunch of stuff where you go, "Oh, that looked really charming in animation. Why the fuck did you try to do it in live action? This looks terrible. Like the fucking wardrobe with giant, baseless eyes that looks like it wants to eat me."
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, this was not an enjoyable. This is not an enjoyable experience for a human being and potentially animals.
All right, well, that's that. Well, this movie was a big hit, so we can expect more where this came from.
Yeah, that live action Lion King is just gonna be a fucking ringer.
I'm just done. I have no more to say about all this shit. Let's just move on to something else.
Toby was like, "Hey, man," like they were like, "Well, I can't. I'm not too angry at it." But then I told them, like, "Remember, this is why that live action Lion King is coming. This is why."
Okay. All right. I'm done. Let's move on. Let's talk about something else.
I'm done too. What did you see any good movies, Tyler?
I did, as a matter of fact. Although, let's talk here. Okay. I saw a French movie by Robert Bresson called Pickpocket. It's a fun little movie. It's a very simple story. It's this guy just basically is low on money. He decides to become a pickpocket, and he does. And the movie follows him constantly stealing people's money and wallets and watches and jewelry. And this movie is basically Crime and Punishment. But it's 76 minutes long, and French, and he feels guilty about it. He kind of falls in love. It's a little bit difficult to track. I don't know. It's weird. It's a good movie. I didn't think it didn't blow my mind or anything, but it's a very fun, enjoyable little movie. This guy made a bunch of other movies that I'm interested in seeing. So I will probably return to his filmography at some point. But Pickpocket's a very enjoyable little diversion, I suppose.
This seems interesting.
Yeah,
this might be something I'd like.
There is a bravura sequence where he and a few fellow pickpockets are robbing people on a train and around a train station, and there's a lot of long flowing takes in it, and it's delightful. I love that. So Pickpocket, good movie. Let's see. I also watched the first 2 episodes of Mark Frost and David Lynch's Twin Peaks.
Oh,
the
was that?
The original series, not the revival.
Oh yeah.
I watched the 90-minute pilot and the second episode. It is weird. It is a weird show.
It's Lynch.
It's Lynch, and it's just so strange because you go into it. If you go into it like I did, knowing that Kyle MacLachlan is in it, playing an FBI agent who comes to this Pacific Northwest town, what sets it off is this popular high school girl turns up dead, and the town sheriff and brings in the FBI in the form of Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah.
He comes into this town. The town is called Twin Peaks, and you're expecting the setup to kind of be Kyle MacLachlan is this kind of normal straight man who will come into this weird town and be what the fuck is going on? That's kind of what
feels like the premise of a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah. It's not. What happens is Kyle MacLachlan comes in and seems just as crazy and strange as anyone else on the show. It is very strange. Like, the first time you see him in the second episode, he is, like, hanging upside down, like, on a bar in his hotel room, like, talking into a little mini tape recorder. It is strange. And I've only seen the first 2 episodes, so I'm sure I've not reached the optimal point of strangeness with this show yet. But, well, so far, it's, like, there are, like, moments that, like, are, like, super cheesy, like, melodrama, like, soap opera moments, but you can tell, like, just by the way they're done, that, like, they are that way on purpose, and, like, in maybe, like, kind of a satirical way. It's just...
I'm taking a TV class, and we talked about it briefly, and, like, one of the things we discussed was how, like, the show almost seems to mock the daytime audience.
Which is so strange. This show originally aired on ABC. Like,
this was like a phenomenon when it was in its prime.
At first, anyway, before they canceled it due to declining ratings. But I honestly, it's such a bizarre experience, and I'm not sure. I want to keep going, but I'm not sure if I want to keep going. It's such a disorienting thing to watch, but I don't know. Maybe I will. I would like to maybe at least finish the first season.
I want to get into Lynch before I really dive into Twin Peaks.
Well, Twin Peaks is kind of one of the major, like, Lynch things. Like, it almost looms larger than several of his movies.
It's the most populous thing he's ever done.
Yeah, which is just not saying much. But yeah, I would recommend. I mean, I've only seen one of his movies, but I do think that was a good kind of primer. If I had gone into Twin Peaks, like, not having seen any Lynch or not knowing anything about him or his filmography, I think I would probably be quite a bit less interested.
Okay.
But Mulholland Drive is a real ride. Mulholland Drive, actually, I don't know if you know the backstory of this, was also, like, produced at first as a TV pilot, and then ABC rejected it, and he was like, well, I guess I'll just make this into a movie. So he just shot more footage and turned it into a movie, and now it's commonly considered one of the greatest films of the 21st century. And I need to see it again. I've only seen it once, and that is a movie that definitely feels like it needs to be seen multiple times.
Yeah, I think I'd be all for, like, a Lynch week once this summer of filmmakers runs down.
Yes, I would also be up for that. Ooh, Reed is waving.
Well, waving in agreement.
Oh, okay, that's good. All right, one more thing here. I also rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. A movie that we all enjoyed quite a bit.
Yes. Lindsay Ellis just released an excellent video essay about it.
I was going to bring that up. I would recommend everyone go and watch that video essay, because we've already talked kind of at length about this movie, so I don't want to get too far, but I really do think that this movie is deserving of a deep dive, maybe multiple deep dives, which is in and of itself a compliment, because so few superhero movies are deserving of a deep dive.
Oh yeah.
I will say, on this go-round, I did notice more flaws in this movie than I either noticed or, like, was willing to admit on, like, the first couple go-rounds when I saw it in theaters, because I think at that time I really felt like I needed to defend this movie, because people were kind of not, like, against it, but, like, kind of like, it's not as good as the first one.
People were going more wild for fucking Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, which is weird. Like, the breakout movie of the summer was really, like, Spider-Man Homecoming and not this, which I was kind of disappointed by.
Me.
Yeah, but I will say this. This is a flawed movie, for sure. There are some noticeable things, some kind of gaps. One big thing I've noticed is that, like, the jokes in this movie are really not super well paced a lot of the time, and also, like, a lot of the time they are really fluffing. Like, honestly, with, like, the whole taser face thing, like, the joke almost becomes, like, how funny the characters in the movie think that name is, because that name is not that funny.
Yeah, that is the joke, is that, like, it's not a funny thing, but
I don't know.
Regardless, one of my issues that, like, they're all dialogue jokes.
Yeah.
There's not really ever a visual gag in the movie.
There are a few, but yeah, a lot of them are, like, kind of quippy things that don't always land. And also, and I think Lindsay Ellis pointed this out, one of the movie's kind of main themes is like abusive like parenthood and like what the living with that, and like the character of Mantis is treated so strangely in this movie because you get the sense that she is also maybe a victim of abuse, and like she is played entirely for comedy.
Yes.
Which is weird, and that's a problem, and I'm willing to acknowledge that. All that being said, there are transcendent moments in this movie. There are things in this movie. There are visual ideas. There are discrete, incredible scenes. Like that action scene where Yondu and Rocket and Baby Groot are like going through the Ravager ship, just fucking people up. Incredible, incredible, and like Yondu's funeral scene at the end is just a perfect scene. It's perfectly constructed. The music and the imagery, all that stuff is just incredible. This is a movie that's about something. Like, I think I texted you this. Like, on the Blu-ray, there's an option to like play the movie with a quote visionary intro by James Gunn. Like, you see James Gunn like in black and white, like sitting in a director's chair, going like, "Hi everyone, I'm James Gunn." And like he talks about how like the movie's like about character. He like really wanted to focus on characters with this movie. Like basically saying, "Hey, I made a real movie. You're welcome."
and one thing I love about like the construction of these movies is that like it is about broken people coming together and like trying to fit and attempting to reckon their brokenness with each other.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing you just don't see in a lot of mainstream movies.
It's incredible. There are more there's more creativity and character building and like thematic work in this movie than most of the other Marvel movies put together.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I honestly, like, anyone who fucking loves Civil War and, like, didn't really like this movie can just fuck the fuck off. One of those people happens to be my roommate. I like you a lot, Daniel. Sorry. But, like, I don't know. This movie, it has flaws, and I think I really like kind of pinpointed the problem with the soundtrack this time around. It's not that he picked like bad songs, because on their own, like a lot of the songs on this soundtrack are really, really good.
I've really warmed up to Lakeshore Drive.
Lakeshore Drive is a delightful song.
I fucking love that song.
I've also come to really like Come a Little Bit Closer. That's just a fun little number. I also do like Lakeshore Drive. The problem is like he didn't pick like good places to drop he didn't use the songs very well. Like Southern Nights is a really good song.
Oh, yeah.
It's not super well used in the scene that it's in. And like
Lakeshore Drive is just kind of used as their like
it's like just kind of dropped in there. It's like, yeah, okay. And like I mean, I still, the fact that Surrender just plays over the end credits is infuriating to me. Because that song is fantastic. I don't know, but you know, in spite of everything, I still love this movie. It's just an incredible, like, personal film. I think it is a mess that is a personal mess.
It's made by humans. It wasn't made by algorithms and focus groups and 1,000 different visions collating into a concrete colored mess.
Yeah, this was James Gunn's movie.
I mean, and just like some of the filmmaking in it is just so much more audacious than what you usually get. Like, there are like shots in this movie that are just like severe close-ups of just faces.
Yeah,
like, the movie's just one of these are like, here are characters, here they are in your fucking face, and you have to deal with them. We're not going to give you some bland, like medium wide for every single emotional moment.
Yeah, I love it. So there you go. My opinion didn't really shift all that much, I guess is what I'm saying. Even though I did notice some more maybe bugs in the movie that I was not going to own up to on the first one, but you know,
I'd be willing to look back at it again. I think it's definitely like my number 2 movie of the year so far.
Yeah, I just think that's a movie I'm going to just watch a lot going forward. Mm-hmm. So that's that.
I think it is. I think it's also my number 2 as well.
Yeah, because Logan's pretty much up there. I don't think that's going to move.
Logan, this, and Get Out are kind of my 3 solid movies throughout this year. really this year needs to start stepping up its game because we're getting toward the end here.
We're about to get into Oscar bait season, and
I saw a trailer for a movie. I think it's called Breathe. Do you know about this? It's directed by Andy Serkis, starring Andrew Garfield. The trailer makes it look like the most cliche, like, Oscar baity shit you could possibly imagine. I was, like, reeling, like, after I saw that trailer. Like, you talk about the Darkest Hour trailer, like, looking like a parody of Oscar movies, like, this was unbelievable.
Oh my god, the poster even looks terrible. Wow, whose idea was this? Well, it is in Schlocktober, so... That's a don't credit me with that. That's something I stole from Movie Bob.
Okay. All right. So that's that. Reed, have you been watching anything?
I haven't had the time, but I did watch a trailer for a new Netflix series coming out in October called Saburo. It is Mafia. It looks like it's like renegade members of the Mafia coming together to take it down other members of the Mafia based in Rome.
Okay, then.
Okay.
I did forget to mention, like, the other stuff I watched during the week. One of the things I watched was the classic documentary Nanak of the North.
Oh.
It's a little racist. It's a little racist.
Is it now?
Yeah, it's which is to be expected because, like, I mean, there are things like the guy that they, like, made up names for the movie. A lot of it was staged. Like, the Inuits were using rifles at this point, but they only use spears in the movie. And, like, at one point they have them built like half an igloo because inside the igloo they didn't get enough light for the cameras. But I mean, like, the cinematography is pretty, but I don't know. I think it does far more harm than it does any good, especially because it says, like, oh, there's, like, a scene where, like, a bunch of Inuit, like, bite a gramophone disc, because that's not what you're supposed to do with that.
Oh no.
And there were excellent essays written about what Nanak of the North does to the Inuits in far more eloquent ways than I am doing here. So I recommend you read that rather than actually watch Nanak of the North.
Well, this is one of those movies that, like, always seems to come up, like, on the lists of, like the most influential, because, like, wasn't it, like, pioneering in terms of, like, some, like, filmmaking techniques?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of with, like, the classic film intelligentsia that the first documentaries were the first films, like the Lumiere brothers just shot a train, and that was a film. I think those are the first documentaries. I think what all Nanak of the North did was attempt to make a narrative out of what we might term, like, real footage. But the problem with it is that it's not real footage.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Is like it didn't try to be a documentary. It was the modern idea of the documentary wasn't really available then. Yeah. So I know. I think it gets too much credit, but I am but a lowly hack fraud going to the. So.
Hey, I mean, I watched Sergei Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin. That's not a movie that anyone needs to watch. I will argue that until the end of time. That is, like, read about, like, what that movie did for, like, editing and montage all you want. Like, watch the clips. That is not a movie anyone needs to watch all the way through.
No, I think the same thing about Triumph of the Whale, as far as, like the idea that movie pioneered any cinematic techniques is Nazi propaganda in itself.
Yeah,
and there's also, and I also agree that, like, the only Soviet movie you ever need to see is Man with a Movie Camera.
I'm not even sure I want to see that.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Man with a Movie Camera. It is propaganda. I'm not going to deny that. It's just in its construction, but I think that movie just has far more going for it than Potemkin or, like, other Eisenstein pictures. But regardless, it's another classic film quagmire. Whereas, like, it helped ferment, like, what we call documentary, but I'm not too sure it has any value actually as a documentary. Nanak of the North. So I was really, I don't like it.
All right. Well, there you go.
And I think I'm doing a TV class, so I might be finally watching TV now.
Ooh, oh boy.
And one of the things this week was a strange assignment where like they had us watch an episode of Louie and an episode of How I Met Your Mother. I think is like a way to like show us like different modes of like American situational comedy.
Sure.
And How I Met Your Mother is exactly what you expect. You have a bunch of people living in a fantasy Manhattan, one of which is a few wrong steps removed from a rapist played by Neil Patrick Harris. I think other than that, they're like they're like this charming group of friends getting into quagmires about relationships.
Tyler's confessions. I really like How I Met Your Mother.
That's fine.
That's one of my favorite just multi-cam sitcoms to just throw on and have a good time.
Especially this episode was really interesting because it was about how to break up with people insofar as like you were shaking your head as if this episode didn't exist.
No. I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
I forget the episode title, but it was about what's the fucking name of the architect again? I watched this show too, and I can't remember anyone.
Ted,
the episode starts with him finding an old shirt he used to wear that he now has a whole new lease on. He decides, what if this is like with everyone else in my life? I'm going to try and find some old flames and try that out again.
Oh, I have seen this episode. Okay, yes.
And it's about like how like he fucked up breaking up with her in like a series of horrible comedic ways. And then, like, in trying to get back together with her, he finds that, like, well, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I don't like this woman as much. And then he has to, like, break up with her again. And there's some conversations about, like, the nature of, like, cutting away someone in your life.
Mm.
And it's interesting and sometimes funny. And people fall into horseshit.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know. I guess I'm just not like a big connoisseur of the multicam sitcom.
That's perfectly fine.
That's really fine. I think it's something that I could grow to like even more of it. But then I watched an episode of Louie, which is far different. It's all like single cam set up, like really, really evocative, sort of like handheld camera work.
Mm.
It was like it's all like really close ups of people, like the comedy club that he works at is like real interestingly filmed, and it's all about Louis trying to this is kind of like some people have called it the real show about nothing.
Yeah,
because it's just about like situational things like week by week.
Yeah.
And, like, this particular episode was about, like, Louis finding, like, trying to find a relationship and, like, asking out some librarian. And it has weird, surrealist moments of black and white, of him watching women smack their ass. And, I don't know, it's kind of an experiment, this show, and I kind of like it.
I watched, like, the first 2 or 3 episodes of that show and never went back to it. I don't know. It's very strange, and it's extremely experimental.
I'm not glued to it, but I think it's interesting. So yeah, that is underwhelmingly all I have watched.
Well, I mean, I've heard this show has some just transcendent episodes, so maybe I'll come back around to it at some point. I
just need to find them.
Maybe so. All right. Is that it? Is that what we've been watching?
I suppose so.
Speaking of Netflix shows, Reed, the new season of BoJack Horseman is due to drop this week, which I'm very excited about.
Good.
I hope it's good. Anyway, all right, that is what we've been watching this week. Let's transition into some Fellini, shall we?
To the peninsula we go.
Oh, boy.
What do we want to talk about first?
Let's start with Lestrada, I think.
Okay.
So, Federico Fellini, kind of one of the most beloved Italian auteurs, and maybe one of the most beloved filmmakers of all time. So this movie was kind of, I think, a big, like, turning point in his career, like, based on what I've read. Like, this is when he kind of, like, finally, like, completely broke away from, like, the neorealist techniques, which is, like, kind of what he'd been working within for his first several movies.
And there's there's some overlap between, like, neorealist techniques with this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so this movie concerns. This is just one thing I love about older movies is that they just throw you right into the plot with like no backstory, no real setup. It's just boom, off we go. We start with Gelsomina being basically sold off by her mother, like quite literally.
Sold to a carny for 10,000 lira.
Yeah, she's sold to a traveling strongman played by Anthony Quinn, named Zampano, and after I think he had already like bought her sister, and then she died somehow. It's never quite made clear. And then they're off on the road to entertain the public, and basically we just follow them on their long journey through the countryside as they
seeing other people along the way.
Yes, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
I really enjoyed it too. I think it's like I think we were talking about this a bit with Guardians, but it's kind of a movie about abuse and abusive people in a really interesting way.
Well, it's weird because like the lead actress, whose name is Giulietta Messina, she was actually Fellini's wife.
Interesting.
And she, I think I read, she's sometimes referred to as the female chaplain, which I think is very apt because this movie feels this movie. Yeah,
there's a scene where they put the little derby hat on her.
Yeah. This movie feels very much, I think, as if like you took like a Chaplin Little Tramp movie and like played it as a tragedy in a weird way.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I kind of think that this kind of reminded me of Modern Times.
Yeah, there's a lot of Modern Times in here. Yeah, you're right. As far as like like a series of broken people traveling through an impoverished place.
Yeah. Also, that lead actress, Giulietta Messina, she just has an incredible face. Like she is so expressive. Like she doesn't even
these like massive eyes.
She doesn't like talk that much in the movie, but like you don't need her to because you can just see everything like written on her face. That's just incredible.
And when she does talk, it's almost like it's honestly surprising and arresting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Face dialogue. Good face dialogue. In that way.
Yes, I agree. Anthony Quinn is also very good as kind of bringing like just this animalistic character to life.
Yeah. Animalistic, but also like kind of tortured at the end.
Yeah, well, you kind of like at the end you get a glimpse of like what maybe you in retrospect it was like his kind of internal life throughout the entire movie. Of just like oh my god, like what am I doing? Like what is my life? Like when he like breaks down on the beach at the end of the movie, that's just a great cinema moment.
Oh yeah. Like him talking to the woman, it's like, oh yeah, there was a woman, she died, she would never talk, and she just didn't sleep one day, and just his face as he's hearing that is honestly arresting.
Yeah. So that's all good stuff.
There's some great acting in this movie.
Yep. Reed, what would you like to say about Lestrade?
It reminded me a lot of Modern Times. I already said that.
Yes.
Reminded me a lot of Modern Times. At one point, one of the characters convinced her, "Hey, basically, just follow the symptoms of Stockholm syndrome, and you'll be fine."
Yeah, that scene is so weird. Like,
yeah, there is.
It's very well acted. Like the guy playing the fool is great.
He's great.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not sure what that actor's name is.
They call him the fool so often.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Anyways.
Yeah, he's great. Gelsomina, Giulietta Messina's performance in that scene is spectacular. Mm-hmm. Great little like monologue about like he's like, oh, everything has a purpose, like even this pebble.
This little pebble. She takes the pebble.
Yeah, love that. But like it's weird because like he's convincing her to like go back to like this abusive relationship.
To an abusive person. It is. And also, there's a lot of just like what abuse does to this woman.
Yeah.
As far as like she just no longer talks. She just no longer. She doesn't really have the. She has sometimes the wherewithal to leave, but not really the strength to do it, which is really heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, it's just like you get that sequence where like she runs away, and then like Zampano like just finds her like randomly in this town where she's like watching this performance, and he just takes her back. Just like by force, he just grabs her and like, come on, we're going. Like,
in all the ways, she's always like something to be taken advantage of the whole way around. Like even when she's not with Zampano, there's like the moment in the square where people like throwing her jacket over her head and mocking her.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, she plays those moments with a lot of pathos, so it's an incredible.
So it really works. It really works.
It's an incredible performance, and it's just strange because like she seems like such a sweet, like innocent, like naive character, and like you watch it and like you see like what Zampano does to her, and you're like, and you see her reaction to it, and you're like, oh my god, like why is this happening? And yet she just keeps going back to it, and yeah, this is very much a movie about like Stockholm syndrome. I think you really hit the nail on the head with that, Reed.
Oh yeah, certainly, and like what these and like the sort of what kindness they see in people, as far as like what little they give them is something they cherish.
Yeah, but also like the filmmaking in this movie is just so exuberant and wonderful. It's kind of shot in a fairly like classical kind of way.
Yeah, just sort of like pretty wide angles. You never get too close.
Yeah.
But just some of the locations they choose is something. It feels like it is an Italian Western in some ways, where it's like sometimes it just feels like there's wilderness everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I will say this, like, unlike other, like, Italian neorealist films, it really doesn't have the idea of, like, Italy, look at her, what has happened?
Yeah.
It's just kind of about, like, these two people in, like, a wasteland. That happens to be Italy.
Yeah.
Which is really peculiar.
I think, you're very right about that. It's just a real experience, this movie. You're really taking on just a real journey with these characters, and it's fascinating to watch. The performances are incredible. You can really feel Fellini kind of like coming into his own like as a filmmaker with this. I think even having like not seen any of his earlier movies, I really do feel like you can really feel that this is like
there's
something
he really filmmaker here.
Yeah, you can really feel he like poured himself into this.
It's not an easy movie to watch, but it is a very fulfilling movie to watch.
Yeah, although also at times very entertaining. Oddly.
Oh yes.
So that's pretty much all I have to say. Reed, do you have?
Yeah, that's about all what I'm at too.
I think out of the two movies we watched, it was the only one where I saw a single hand gesture.
Oh, I see.
I'm Italian too, you fuck.
I am too. It's okay.
It's also this movie has the only scene out of the two where they eat any pasta. So
yeah. Oh yeah. One of the things is that you eat spaghetti on the type roll.
Yeah.
But Italian stereotypes aside, are we ready to enter the quagmire of 8.5?
Oh, I sure am.
Can I ask a question though? 8.5 what?
8.5. Fuck you.
No. 8.5 movies. The title refers to this was the.
Oh yeah, those like half movies. You're right.
This is the. I think this like prior to this movie, I think Fellini had made quote unquote 8.5 films because he'd made 6 features, like 2 short segments, and then he'd co-directed another movie. So he'd 8.5 refers to his filmography up to this point. So that's where that comes from.
Interesting.
Yes.
What a prick.
Okay. All right. So this movie follows Guido. God, what's his last name? Alsani.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, it's not. It's not Daniel Day-Lewis. It is Marcello Mastroianni, giving really an incredible performance, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's a Fellini movie. All of the performances are great across the board.
Yeah. But anyway, he stars as Guido Anselmi, a famous Italian film director who has kind of stalled on his latest project creatively. Yeah. Like you kind of see like his producers and the crew and everybody like being like, so like Guido, like what's the movie? Like the actresses like come up to him and ask like, what's my role?
Yeah, what's my role? Like how many scenes am I in? 5, maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the same time, he's experiencing like his marriage is kind of falling apart. Yep. He has a mistress, and he's just kind of thrown into a fog. He like is re-experiencing childhood memories and experiencing like wild fantasies. The movie is just kind of free flowing and like dreamlike, moves from just like incident to incident. You're never
like at one point they build like this giant like it looks like an erector set.
Yeah.
That is like the set of the movie, and it has like no purpose. Nobody knows what it is.
It looks like a set like right out of fucking Playtime, and like it just kind of sits there for the entire movie.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this movie, I don't know how much more we can say about it that hasn't been said already, because this is just one of those movies that's always just held up as one of the supreme achievements of cinema.
It is the meta movie.
It is the meta movie.
Like a film about filmmaking.
Yeah. And, I really like it. I think
I really like it too.
It's a stupendous movie. The filmmaking in it is extraordinary. Like, the leap between, like, from Lestrada to this, I mean, they weren't made one after the other. They were, like, 10 years in between them. But, like, it's still incredible to just see, like...
I mean, just, like, the opening of people floating and, like, smoke filling a car.
Yeah.
Just how the movie shoots faces is just so interesting.
Yeah. The faces in this movie are all incredible. He's just so up there with them. The cinematography in this movie is so incredible.
It's always like whipping about. It's like this really dynamic camera.
Yeah.
The sets are unbelievable.
The sets are great. It's just an incredibly. I mean, it's not like the most like perfectly like constructed movie, just because it's so like free flowing and like.
Yeah, it does feel like some like peyote filled dream.
But you know that's on purpose, so that's okay.
Exactly. So sometimes, like, we don't know what is dream, and like I think sort of a blurring of reality and fantasy is really the point of the movie. Yeah, no, you're kind of from scene to scene. You're never like quite sure for like a minute. Like it takes you a minute to acclimate, like to like okay, this scene I think is real. This scene is definitely a dream. Like okay, there was a scene where I'm like, okay, that started off me thinking it was real. Okay, now it's definitely fake. Okay, this is definitely fantasy. That sequence where, like, he has that, like, ultimate stereotypical male fantasy where, like, he's living in a palace with just all the women he's ever known, like, waiting on him hand and foot. Reed is disappearing under his blanket. That is just the strangest scene, but it also has some of the most impressive filmmaking in the whole movie. It would be... I mean, it is off-putting and it is disturbing, but it would be like... That's kind of the point. No, it is the point. It would be egregious if you didn't definitely get the feeling that, like, Fellini is, like judging this man. Yeah. Certainly. Oh, yeah, it is all about, like, his, like, over the movie, like, we just get a sense that, like, Guido feels like he can control just about any women in his life. Yeah. And this is just, like, the ultimate, just sort of, like, ultimate parody of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that scene in particular comes at the point in the movie when Fellini goes, "Hey, you felt some sympathy for this guy? Well, how about now?"
I think you still do feel sympathy for him after that, but you're kind of like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, you need to get your shit together. Yeah, there was the scene where like they're like showing like screen tests and like the producers are like, "This is democracy. Can't anyone say anything? What's going on, Guido?" I love that scene. I love that scene. They're just showing like screen test after screen test of all these actresses. The producers like, "Guido, just make a decision, please. Yeah, anything, please." And like when like the producers come or like when the reporters come, he just doesn't say anything and hides under the table. Yeah. It's all great. It's an extraordinary movie. Oh yeah, right. There's nothing else like it out there. Yeah, I think it really captures like more than anything else I've ever seen. Just like how completely you can get like lost in your own kind of your own psyche and your own like ambitions and like your own ideas, like when you're working on a creative project and how there's just constantly people coming up and like just saying like, you know, is this really what you want? About like just having intellectual conversations about like what he wants to put into his movie. Yeah. And like how like everywhere he goes, he gets like everywhere he goes there is
people are saying, like, do you really want to do that? Is that really what you want?
I think, interestingly, like, a good companion piece to this movie would be Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now.
Oh yeah, that'd be perfect.
Which is an extraordinary movie, by the way.
Just not knowing what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, continually saying, like, I'm going to make a movie, but not knowing what movie that's going to be. Which always ends in disaster.
Yeah, yep.
Unless you're Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah. Reed, what are your thoughts on 8.5, Otto e mezzo?
Gosh, where do I begin? Yeah, I don't. It's I don't know about this. I don't know.
When you're watching it, you just kind of go like, "What is going on?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an experience you have.
Because about halfway through, I'm thinking, you know what? All the dream sequences are much more interesting than what's happening in real time. It's like, oh my God.
Which I think is maybe the point.
Yeah, like, I think his, like, flights of fancy are just kind of these things, and then, like, he is grabbed right back to, like, draining reality, where people are just bickering at him every day.
Mm.
And it's, like, everything around him is, like, falling apart, just both, like, in movie terms and, like, and emotionally.
Yeah.
And, like, there was also, like, a couple sequences in the beginning where it's like, oh, he dies, and then in a Wings of Desire moment, purgatory heaven with ruins and his parents that may be dead, and his wife who may also be dead. Which
that's fascinating. There's like the fascinating scene where it's like he's in like the ruins of what looks like an aqueduct or something, and there's a little house, and he talks to his father.
Yeah, and then like the producers come, so it's like, oh my God. Oh wow, what's going to happen later in this movie? And then the ending comes and none of that happens, and they all stand in like a weird... Like,
they're all in a cockle.
The ending of this movie is very strange.
I'm not saying I understand everything, man. I'm just as lost as you.
Yeah.
It's a movie, what are you doing? Movie.
This...
I mean, like, all the stuff with this childhood that, like, comes back, and then, like, you learn that Guido is making, is trying to make a movie with those childlike elements.
Yeah.
But then there's a rocket in there. So then I'm thinking, is Anthony Mars the Tsar of Love and Techno, which is, it's not a movie, it's a book, but it ends with one of the characters in space. Launched on a rocket.
Well, within those, like, childhood moments, you also get, like, and this is one thing that continues throughout the movie, is, like, a subtle critique of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And, like, a small discussions of Catholicism in Italy.
I don't know that it's that subtle. I would say it's, like, it's
well, it's not one of, like, the huge things the movie's about.
It's mild. It's not subtle, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a better word for it.
It's not in the background nor in the foreground. But think of it as like a side dish.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although there's some interesting things with, Catholicism and whatnot, when he has a memory of getting involved with, what's that woman's name?
Oh God, what is her name?
There's so many women. There's so many women.
The one that does dance and all the Catholics.
It's also just a really weird name. Hang on, I'm gonna find this.
Is that the one who dances on the beach? Or?
Yeah.
I can't remember her name.
Starts with La Saragina.
Yeah, that's right.
She's a prostitute. Who they like find on the beach outside of their Catholic school.
Yeah, and then the treatment that Guido goes through little Guido goes through afterwards.
Yeah. That's all good stuff. I love that scene where he goes to like see the cardinal, and the cardinal's like, "You cannot be saved outside the church. You cannot be saved outside the church." And that scene, by the way, stupendously shot. Just a big kind of first person like into the bathhouse, and like you see the cardinal.
The bathhouse scene is just arresting.
Yeah, you see the cardinal just kind of like shrouded in steam, and then like. Kind of like tracks backward out of the bathhouse as he leaves. I love all that.
It's on the filmmaking in this movie is just utterly unbelievable.
Yeah, it's stupendous. This movie is the height of art house, I think, and
yeah, it's a high watermark for like Italian film, for like meta film.
Yeah. You need to have the right mindset going into it, I think. But if you are prepared, I think you're in for a real,
I think
incredible experience.
Well, granted, if we just say like it is the film about filmmaking, I'm not quite sure you're going to be prepared for everything in the movie.
Yeah.
If you are ready for raucous, dreamlike time, then I think you'll really love it.
Well, I mean, if you've been following us in the podcast, then you did see Jump Scare Cock. I think that you're going to be fine with this.
This movie...
Few things are as opaque as Persona.
This movie is a step down from Persona in terms of just sheer impenetrability.
Yeah.
But there you go. All right. So that's 8.5. We
finally
finally knocked it out.
Italian week.
It was quite the week.
Well, they liked it.
I liked it too. I enjoyed myself quite a bit. I really like Italian films, actually. I think that might be like my favorite my favorite nation of European cinema, I think.
Yeah, I think I have a really big soft spot for Italian neorealism.
Yeah.
Like, I think Bicycle Thieves is one of my favorites of, like, classic European cinema.
That's a good one. I mean, what am I saying? It's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I love all that. But, hey, next time, I had an idea. And I kept meaning to bring this up and then never actually bringing it up. But how would we feel about doing some Iranian films?
Ooh. I would be...
Yes.
I would be all on board for that.
Yes. So the Iranian filmmaker that I think tends to come up a lot in the canon is Abbas Kiarostami. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He made a movie called Close Up that I really want to see. And then I think he also had a more recent film that was called Certified Copy. I would kind of like to see that as well. I definitely want to watch Close Up, and Certified Copy is an option. If you have anything else you'd like to suggest, I'm open to it.
When did Close Up come out?
1990?
1990. Interesting. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of comparing like some sort of more in the canon work of something more recent.
Okay, yeah. Certified Copy, yeah, that came out in like 2010. This guy's still working, I'm pretty sure. So he's
I would bet.
He's dead. That's it.
Wait, is he?
Oh
my gosh. I forgot. Oh yeah, he died this year. Oh shit.
Last year.
Oh, good God. What fucking year is this? It all blurs together. Time is non-existent.
What is time? What is film? What year is this?
I just watched 8.5, okay?
That's exactly what I felt at the end of 8.5. What is time? What is film?
What am I? So yeah, Close Up and Certified Copy.
Close Up and Certified Copy. All right. These are some short movies. They're not super long. So this should be fairly easy to knock out. All right.
Non-painful cinema week.
I'm ready. All right. Abbas Kiarostami coming your way. Hooray. I'm excited to check this out. I've been meaning to look into this guy for a long time.
He seems fascinating.
All right. We will see you upon the next week. Adieu. Or arrivederci, as I suppose is the phrase of the week. If you say that's a spicy meatball, I'm going to kill you.
Well, you can't because you're 2,000 miles away.
That's true.